Later that evening at the designated grove. Every time the wildlife scampers in the underbrush, my heart leaps into my throat. The night-drenched grove with its looming trees and piercing shadows screams it's an ambush. Thankfully, there's been no sign of one. Yet. Rebecca holds a pair of glittering golden cufflinks in front of my face to bring me back to our preparations. Inside of the right cuff is your radio. We'll be able to hear everything through it. She hands me an earpiece. And you'll be able to hear instructions through this. Who will be on the other end? I ask as I slip the glimmering accessories into the holes of my sleeves. They're thankfully light enough that they don't tug at the light material around my wrists. That would be us, babe, Farah says, her voice crackling through on the earpiece as I press it into place. So, even when you're put on the sidelines, you can't stay out of the game? I ask with a half smile as I rearrange my outfit for the 100th time. We may not be able to be there with you yet, but your protection is still our priority throughout this, Ava states. Oddly, her words offer a real boost of confidence. My fidgeting stops. I look at Rebecca, who is checking a whole bunch of strange-looking tools strapped to a belt around her hips. She's dressed in a form-fitting dark grey outfit with the agency's moon insignia embroidered on the side. A baton-like weapon is strapped to her thigh, and she has a few vials of bright-colored liquid lashed around one wrist. She certainly looks like she means business. What about you? I ask after my quick inspection. Didn't you have a radio? She shakes her head. One radio should be able to slip past any of their sensors, but two might begin triggering their systems. How will I know how far you are into the building, or what you're doing? This really doesn't seem like a smart move at all. Her hands fall into my arms, and a flash of buried memory is dragged to the surface. The air is sweet with the scent of the party buffet spread across a long table. The ceiling is bright with hung bunting and birthday banners, and a melody of happy laughter echoes from the garden. A small paper crown sits on top of my head as I gaze at my mother. I'll be back as soon as I'm able, she promises, even though her voice cracks on the words, her hands rubbing my arms before she takes one of my hands in hers. She always promises that. A painful swell of loneliness almost swallows my small form. But it's my birthday, I sniff. I know, she replies in a soft tone, kneeling down. A shine wets her eyes as she brushes her fingers against my cheeks. So try to enjoy yourself, Jules. She stands and nods at the nanny who turned up last minute, squeezes my hand a final time, and then leaves me alone amongst the cheer and happiness that I struggle to be part of. Reality thumps me like a physical blow as I blink away the painfully vivid memory. I still remember how much I cried that day, and how sorry she said she was to have missed it when she got back too late for any of it. A whole host of people had attended, but the one person I wanted hadn't stayed with me. I wonder now if she'd left to go on a mission like this. Did she choose the lives of strangers over the happiness of her own child? And is it selfish to wish that she hadn't? Sure, we'll go with that. It's so easy to play the what if game with the past, easy to get consumed by it if I let it. But doing so won't change a damn thing. I frown, drawing in a deep breath to push back the flood of invading images from the past. Is everything all right? She asks as my silence drags on. I take a step back, hoping the distance from her will help. It's difficult to know what to say, so I just say it. I was just remembering a birthday party I had once. She leans away in obvious surprise. A birthday party? I was turning 7, maybe. A haze begins to fog the memories that had been painfully clear before. My gaze shifts to meet hers. You left in the middle of it. Her whole face tightens, and she spins away to march towards her backpack on the ground. I remember it. You do? Now it's my surprise, making me tip back. Of course I do. I spent months organizing that party. Do you remember that character you loved so much? She asks with a wistful but hollow laugh, before quickly distracting herself by rifling through the bag. It took weeks to find anyone who could make decorations featuring them. I had to call in quite a few favors, in fact. My throat tightens with each word as she speaks. Her hands pause their rummaging and her shoulders shake. You don't know how much I regret not being able to enjoy that day with you. Regret? I think this is one of the rare times I've actually heard her admit to feeling any remorse about her absence from my life. Sure, we'll go with that. But as much as you may regret it now, you still chose to leave, I mumble, finding it impossible to keep my sadness from choking the words. It's not an accusation, just a painful reminder that neither of us can change the past. We may be so much closer now, just as I had wished we'd been in the past, but the wounds still cut deep, this memory only making them fresh once more. It's difficult to know how long they'll take to heal, or if they ever will. She springs up and turns to me, her face drawn and her hands stiff at her sides. Jules, There are unknowns approaching. Oh, Ava. There are unknowns approaching your location, Ava informs me through my earpiece, breaking the raw pain from our conversation, which seems to infect the entire grove. I swallow hard, taking a second to compose myself before replying. Okay. I never thought I'd be thankful for a trapper interruption, but that whole scene was seriously awkward. Farai is muttering, but it's loud enough that I can hear her words through the earpiece. I ignore the comment, already feeling exposed enough without the realization that they must have heard the whole scene, and nod at Rebecca. The trappers are on their way. She nods in turn, the vulnerable sadness from moments ago instantly wiped away to a mask of serious intensity. I'll go on ahead and follow you to the meeting place. Wait. Okay. I'll go on ahead and follow you to the meeting place from a distance. Whatever you do in there, try to keep them distracted for as long as possible. The more time you can give me, the more chance I have of saving as many people as possible. Understood, I reply, a surprising amount of strength finding its way into my voice. She grabs up her bag, swings it over her shoulder, and makes to step away before pausing. Please stay safe, Jules. Her body tenses. I love you. Very much. And then she's lost to the night. I don't have time to process that farewell, let alone the whole conversation, before the bushes rustle behind me. I swing around just in time to see a hulking figure loom out of the forest, with footsteps so heavy they make the ground shudder. Two trappers flank the supernatural, prods flickering with electricity which bites at the balmy summer air. On quick inspection, the supernatural reminds me of a gigantic toad, lumbering bipedally on legs that seem far too short and scrawny to hold up its massive form. Its top half is covered by a loose shirt, and its thick neck and head seem to be one mass poking from its collar. Its webbed hands stick out from damp sleeves. It takes a moment to place it, but I realize I've read about these creatures, the Buffontra. They're very rare here. Most are unable to pass through the portals that cut our world off from the Echo World, though some do make it. It seems the trappers caught this one before the agency had a chance to help it. The Buffontra peers around the grove with large brown eyes, which look almost exactly like the large brown spots marking its ochre-yellow skin. It pays no attention to me as it stares intently about the area. The black-suited trappers, on the other hand, don't look anywhere except at me. Anything? One of the trappers asks eventually. The Buffontra swings its bulbous head. No vampires. I'm almost disappointed. The man hisses as he approaches me, slapping his prod into his open fist. I keep my gaze straight ahead, trying to remain unaffected by the display, my shoulders pulled back. He pauses a foot from me with a steadily growing grin. I was hoping a couple of vampires might fetch me a good enough price to buy a new house. We don't risk saying anything. My focus finally drops to the weapon he has settled in his palm. The electricity no longer crackles from it, but that doesn't mean I'm not well aware of its potential threat. I drag my gaze back up, my throat tight. It would be too much of a risk to say anything and chance the mission ending before it's even started. The silent type, huh? The trapper asks before shrugging. I suppose we can work with that. This way, the woman behind him insists, gesturing with her prod towards where they just emerged. Further into the depths of the forest. It's nearly impossible to find a safe trail through the dark. Not even the moonlight can penetrate the claustrophobic canopy that hangs overhead, as they're as thick as a cavern roof. Thankfully, the Buffontra acts as a guide through the brush, which makes sense. They have incredible homing abilities, their instincts able to detect even the smallest of familiar magical vibrations. The Buffontra snaps back branches, yanks bushes from the ground, and removes pretty much any obstacle from our path with ease. The trappers paid no mind, only occasionally glancing in its direction if it pauses. The two trappers begin to pull slightly ahead, seeming to sense their way as we must be getting closer to their base, but the Buffontra lags behind to help me avoid a twisted tree root before it trips me up. Sure. I turn my head to it with a smile as I pass. Thanks. Surprise makes its already large eyes widen before it nods. You're welcome. Getting chatty with the workers? The trapper from earlier sneers before clicking his tongue. Not sure our boss would be too pleased to hear how friendly you are with them. It was manners, nothing more, the toad creature croaks. You might want to learn from it. The trapper's sneer grows before he hisses out a few curses and barks at the supernatural to move ahead. I hold back the anger which burns in my chest and follow on after them. The outfit that had been chosen for me isn't exactly made for hiking through the forest, and when we finally come upon a pathway cut through the trees, the bottoms of my trousers are splattered with dried mud and laddered with stray twigs. As I raise my focus from my dirty clothing, I draw in a gasp. The trees lining the path are glittering with hundreds of delicate lights, creating a star-like effect on the ground as we walk. Crystal chandeliers are suspended from the higher branches, and streams of golden chains dripping with crystals run like bunting from branch to branch around the clearing. A burgundy carpet has been laid down, leading to the entrance of an abandoned house. Or at least it was abandoned at one point. Now it is bustling with a crowd of people, all dressed in black and gold as I am, the walls of the crumbling wooden house gleaming with glowing runes. As the trappers come to a stop on either side of me, feeling much more like a guard than an escort, the Buffontra ambles away from us. All eyes suddenly swing around to face me, and I'm quick to notice that those eyes aren't human. Time to meet the host, the trapper on my left remarks, poking me in the back with his prod and forcing me to stumble forwards. I head towards the carpet path, the crowds cutting a swathe for me as I pass. Many of them lean a little closer as I walk by, their eyes fluttering closed with delight as they sniff at the air around me. To say it's disturbing is an understatement. Sure. My shoes hit the velvety material covering the baked ground, and I stride across without even a look at the mix of people peering at me as I go. The confident air surrounding me seems to make their interest wane, even though a few whispered conversations start up as I pass. By the time I head up the creaky stairs, most everyone has returned to their own interests and conversations, which seem to be focused on the event ahead rather than me. I allow myself a small moment of triumph at passing through the trial successfully. My trapper escorts peel away and leave me to enter through the open doorway alone. Inside, I allow myself a breath, then another one of awe. Whatever walls might have been on this floor have been stripped away, leaving a large open space with a gated off staircase to one side. The walls have been painted midnight black, and golden wall sconces and more chandeliers glow with atmospherically dim light. The modern chic decor clashes with the rundown architecture, lending an eerily elegant aesthetic to the space. A low stage takes up the entirety of the back of the room, an auctioneer's podium near the center of it, and a shiver of disgust slithers down my spine as I spot it. At least there are fewer people in here, most seeming to have escaped outside to avoid the heat of the room. The handful of people indoors are mingling at standing tables, crystal glasses grasped in one hand and black pedals with gold numbers grasped in the other. You inside? Nat asks through the earpiece. It sounds quieter now. I almost forgot the vampires were there at all, as they'd been silent during our whole journey, likely to avoid detection, though I haven't even been frisked for a weapon or wires. Turning to one corner, I clear my throat before answering quietly. Yes, it's quite the setup they have. Ava is quick to speak. Make sure to get a lay of the space in case you need to. And you must be our eagerly anticipated guest of honor, a voice announces from behind me. I swing around to come face to face with the mastermind behind this whole affair, the one who's been kidnapping innocent people just to taunt me, the one who's been controlling Sin to do her bidding, the one who doesn't even look guilty about any of it. The woman grins at me. How wonderful to finally meet you, Jules. She holds out her hand towards me, her moss-green eyes glinting in excited anticipation of how I might respond. Your emotions cannot come into play now, Detective, Ava reminds me with a stern voice. You're there to distract her while Agent Langford rescues those she can. Your job is to act the part. While I am very aware of my job here tonight, I am also keenly aware of just what this woman has done in the name of greed, and it makes my skin burn with anger. Are we capable of flirting? Do we have... I doubt that's a professional stat, but let me check. People in psychology, 55%. If she's good, it's not going to work. We'll go with that. I take her hand with as much enthusiasm as I can muster past my wall of rage and push a bright smile into my face. I've been just as eager to meet you, I assure you. Really? She tips her head back with a chuckle and spreads the fingers of her free hand against her exposed cleavage, which peeks out from a revealingly low button-up black shirt that sparkles with dots of gold glitter. I'm so glad to hear it. And I certainly wouldn't have wanted to miss all this splendor, I state, glancing about the space, which is beautifully decorated, if nothing else. Oh, I see we're going to get along so well. she states, bringing our still joined hands up between us with another smile. She eventually releases my hand, far slower than needed, but I keep my calm and ignore it. I avoid wiping what feels like the lingering grime of her touch away on my trouser leg. But you haven't introduced yourself. Uh, who is that her? But you haven't introduced yourself? You have yet to introduce yourself, I state. Ah, of course. She steps away with a slight bow before snapping straight back up. My name is Cessair. I am host, auctioneer, and owner of the Bidder's Nest. Heavy footsteps echo behind her before a shadow towers over her shoulder. Cessair seems to grow in stature at the presence which now flanks her, and she swings a hand out to the side. And of course you remember Sin. I open my mouth to reply, my body whirling with sudden emotion at seeing him again after the ordeal at the warehouse, but my host slips her hand into the crook of my arm and leads me away before I get the chance. I'm not sure if Sin is guarding us or keeping guard over me as we walk closer to the stage at the back of the room, but I do my best to focus on the mission. I'm so glad you decided to come tonight, Cessair says, drawing my attention back. I knew you could be convinced to see my way of things. Sure, I reply as we walk past even more of her guards, who line the walls with their hard stares and sharp suits. Have you convinced all these people to see your way too, or are they forced? My gaze slips to Sin behind us before I snap it back. She tugs me to a stop as an incredulous, wide-mouthed expression sinks across her face. Just what kind of person do you think I am? We begin walking again as her smile returns, along with a laugh. They all work for me because I pay them. Cessair sighs. I pay them a lot, I might add. She sidles closer with a wink. It's amazing how much loyalty you can buy these days. Hmm. Hmm. Sure, we'll keep up the polite pretense. In order to keep this mission on track, I know I can't show how I really feel about any of this, so I give a nod at her words and try not to tense too tightly. I can see you're a woman who knows how the world works. And I'm sensing that you're the same, she replies, giving me a delighted squeeze with her hand, which is why I think you will be particularly interested in our next lot. She steps away and gives a few sharp claps of her hands. There is a bustle of activity as patrons seem to recognize whatever the clap indicates. They move forwards in a swell, their paddles grasped tighter in their hands. A well-concealed door at the back of the stage area swings open. Two large trappers dressed in tuxedos step out of the gloom, dragging a figure between them. My heart drops into my stomach. Elidor. Next chapter.